Good afternoon, it's Joyful Christian Hermit. I'm going to do a two-part video. The first part's going to be on some history of Advent in the temporal aspects. Then the next one will be of the spiritual, the origins of it spiritually and things, and where we can go from there. And I don't know why I'm choosing to do the temporal first, but anyway, it really goes back to the 19th century, the temporal aspects of what was added in to help celebrate Advent, of which the word Advent comes from the Latin adventus, meaning coming, the coming of Christ. In two parts it means the coming of Christ's birth and the coming of the Parousia, the coming of Christ's second coming. So both of those were in the original reason for Advent, but which started in the 4th century, so the 300s, early 300s, in fact. So, but the temporal ways of it, what we have temporalized it, and I'm sure there's other ways. I might mention a couple others that I didn't think of automatically, but the ones that are the one that's in churches, Protestant and Catholic, in many countries, most countries, has to do with the Advent wreath. And that, while it started in the 1800s or the 19th century, it has roots in the 16th century or the 1500s, but it became more an accepted practice in homes and in churches in the 19th century with 24 candles in a wreath of greenery. And of course, the circular wreath has lots of symbolisms that goes way back. A circle can even go back to pagan times. But for Christians, it can represent the Holy Spirit and unity, infinity. Of the infinitive symbol is an 8, but it's a unity of a never ending. It can also represent the sun and the light. Christ is often referred to as the light of Christ. But they would light one candle each day for 24 days beginning December 1. And it became very awkward to have 24 candles on greenery, plus dangerous, could catch fire. They didn't have the artificial wreaths back then. And so they simplified to just four candles then. And the candles represented one for hope, one for peace, one for joy, and one for love. And those could be lit every day. But then it came to lighting them on the Sundays in Advent. And also Advent used to be much longer. But it got down to being 4 weeks, essentially 4 weeks, starting with the Sunday that was the closest to the Feast of St. Andrew, which is November 30th. So whatever Sunday is the closest to the 30th of November, St. Andrew's feast day, would be the first Sunday in Advent, and so on. And then they now the candles, 3 of the candles are violet, and 1 is rose-colored. In the Catholic Church, this was interesting. In the Catholic Church, the color is violet, a purplish, pinkish, a light, not a dark purple, not like my sweater. But I only have one or two violet sweaters, so for my Advent, I will include the darker purple. And so I just do this. It reminds me, and it gets me, into the new year, the new liturgical year, spiritually so. Also, And I do more than the temporal I do now because I'm in construction in here. Don't have a wreath out. Maybe I will. I have 3 candles over there. I'll rummage up a 4th. One of them is in a blue container. That'll count. 2 are white. I'll just pretend. But I'll start lighting those and get 4 of them. So anyway, and in now I think they include, do we include a 5th that is lit on Christmas Day in the center of the wreath? That's even more recent. But the Catholics will use violet with 1 rose colored. That's on the 3rd Sunday of Advent, which is called Gaudete Sunday, meaning joy, rejoice. Gloriam, Gaudete, much joy. The Protestants tend to use purple or bluish. So we have to understand that Protestants want to distinguish away from Catholicism. Even in the 20th, 19th, and 20th centuries, just to make that distinction, so they'll make slight changes. And we have to, that's okay, except now, I do wish they would just recognize that mistakes were made, terrible ones, sinful, but not to throw out. Not to throw out, but to correct. Correct and move on. That's a good way to be. And I noticed in some of the research I was doing, a lot of it was very beautifully written, and it was from a Lutheran minister in Calgary, Canada. Was going back to different things that St. Bernard of Clairvaux had written, and way back into the history for Advent. So I found it very wonderful that person that was just recently, was quite willing to embrace the Catholic history and Catholics and what they wrote. And because to go back into history, as is said, is to cease to be Protestant. I think it was John Henry Newman who said that, Cardinal Newman. To go back into history is to cease to be Protestant. We realize when we go back before the 1500s in church that we were all Catholic before then. All Christians were Catholic. And not to just discount that over, yes, some horrible things that were being done, especially in Germany at that time. Corruption in the church. So that's the Advent wreath. And now we usually have a white one in the middle for Christmas Day. Then the Advent calendar was also in the 19th century and began in Munich, Germany. Or Munich, maybe it's pronounced there in Germany. I think it's Munich. Hard K sound at the end. And it was actually by a housewife. I'm pretty sure likely Lutheran, Protestant, who just got tired of endlessly answering the children every day, when Christmas is coming. They kept asking. So she actually created the first form of an Advent calendar, but originally even in other ways, people were just marking on the wall in chalk lines, day by day by day, or they would light a candle every day to signal one more day, and had 24 candles, or would just light another one anew each day or something. But lighting of candles was another way, but not in the wreath, not in the Advent wreath form at the same time. This was different reason, too, that it started, just to help children. And it's still pretty much that way, except it's expanded. It can become very spiritual. Get away from just the temporal aspect of Christmas Day the coming of Christ, but of course children associate with gift giving and of toys and things. So, but we can do what we want with anything and make up our own Advent traditions too, which various people do. Some of you probably do and might leave comments of things you do. So then somebody made the first actual in 1851 the first wooden carved Advent calendar of some sort, and with little doors that would open and little treats could be put in. But it didn't become really more traditional to have treats in them until they were printed. The first printed calendars, let's see. Oh, here was another thing they did before the calendars. They would hang a different devotional picture on the wall, an image, each day closer to Christmas, a devotional image of some sort, or even a devotional item would be hung on the wall to represent, so the children could watch, how much closer we're getting to Christmas. And that had more of a religious connotation. So the first printed Advent calendar on cardboard or heavy paper was in 1902 or 1908. It varies. And Gerhard Lang was credited with that, of adding small doors by 1920. He added small little doors that could be opened, or little windows. And in the 1930s were added scripture verses with the, inside the little doors, and with traditional pictures too, of holy pictures, or it became commercialized, of winter scenes, of Christmas trees. There's, of course, Christian symbolism with the Christmas tree, but that even goes back into pagan times too. So we borrow from society and from culture to help create meaningful religious traditions. So let's see, in the 1940s, with World War II, late 1930s, over in Germany, they were banned, the Nazis banned the printing of Advent calendars due to cardboard shortages, paper shortages. But somehow they consider it miraculous that Richard Silmar of Stuttgart, Germany, got permission from the United States before the war was over, somehow got permission, or immediately after, to print the calendars again. And they're in their 70th years of their company, which is called the Selmar Verlag Company. It's one of the most important producers and prolific producers of Advent calendars in the world. And there are many others now, but they are the most prolific. In the late 1950s, chocolate came to be used, little chocolates. But way back in the 1800s, so in Germany, they would put little chocolates in their handmade Advent calendars, little treats like that. But it became, in the printed calendars, the inclusion of these little chocolate treats, or now even they do other treats. I I have seen, I think at Costco or someplace, or stores or something, I have seen dog advent calendars with little dog treats behind, of all things. And that, I just thought of that when I was doing this research. I have seen those. And they also have different theme advent calendars based on people's hobbies and interests, so have gotten away from the religious scenes and devotional images on advent calendars to commercialized. Christmas themes then came, but now even with hobbies, like if a person's a mechanic or whatever, they'll do the theme. There's probably a pickleball advent calendar. Who knows? I'm assuming there might be, or sports advent things that if you have children that are athletes or whatever it is. But I'm sure I've seen dog calendars that have these little, and that's a testament to how people are. Some people, young people, I think, are having dogs instead of babies. They choose not to have families in that way, and dogs become their children. I'm not going to pass judgment or anything. I mean, I'm old and silly, and I spoil these two, and I call myself mommy to them. Mommy will get you out of your crate. Mommy will take you out. At first, I started saying the old lady. I was old lady. The old lady will get you up, get you out of your crate. So, old lady will take you for a walk. And I think I was at Marshall's, this store in the United States that sells discounted items, but also they have a dog section. And if you get things on sale, you can get really. So I went there to get them their first few toys and their bowls and their dog bowls and things, because I could get for such inexpensive prices compared to a pet store. But I was in there and referred to myself as the old lady to the dogs, because you can take your dogs in with you in that store. And a customer, or maybe it was a clerk, said, I don't think that sounds good. You ought to call yourself something else, something more loving. So anyway, but I'm not getting them a dog calendar. I'm saving any money I have. I am fasting from any unnecessary and silly expenditures, and even expenditures that I could justify, because for my Our Lady of Nigeria fund, I want to send money over to Father Vincent to get some gifts and necessary things, but also something fun. I told him fun things for this girl that he hit by accident. He did find out the mother is a widow. She's a single mother, and I think there's other children in the home besides this girl. So I want them to have a good Christmas, and I also want these retired priests to all have something. A nice meal or anything, or if they need something special, or even some chocolate, something special for them. I said get them, but that's why I'm starting to sell some of my leftover wood and different things. I have a fan for sale now. I sold extra wire over the weekend. I'm earning money because this month I'm tighter with my own bills, but I'm determined. So how did I get off on that? Oh, I guess how commercialized advent calendars can be, and that I'm not buying anything for these dogs. Not Christmas presents or anything. They've got plenty. They have toys that I'd gotten originally that I'm repairing for them, that they chewed holes in. They'll have as if new toys that way. And to think I gave them toys even. It's it's a constant thing we have just to keep track of ourselves, isn't it? And since I'm so aware, since I saw that picture of where Father Vincent is living with these 60 or 65 retired priests who are ill and elderly, and some are younger, who a couple have had breakdowns and are there. And, it's a stark reminder to me of communal guilt I have. I have guilt of humanity, of how well I live. And so I'm also, going to sell whatever I can. There's things here that I don't need anymore. And as I use up materials that I will not need, I'm selling. Okay. So the chocolates came in the late 1950s. In this country, in the United States, it was more popular over in Europe then. We didn't have internet with things to, but televisions came along. And so in the 1950s, President Eisenhower here in the United States, who was a war hero and then became president, he is credited with popularizing the Advent calendar in the United States. He was photographed opening one of the little doors with his grandchildren one Christmas, or one Advent season. And then it took off from there. So those are other, of course, Advent traditions families will have, baking certain things, or I had a little gingerbread house mold. And after the divorce, I decided we would start new memories, I called them. We'll make new memories, because it was very sad leading Advent and leading into Christmas, because it wouldn't be the same without having our family intact, without having a dad in the home. And so we started doing these gingerbread houses. They could invite friends over. I would bake and bake and bake. I finally got 2 molds. I gave them to my eldest daughter. I don't think they ever used them. But they bought the kits. You can buy the kits. But I made them all by hand, because we did so many. They could invite friends over, and they'd sit around the table, and I bought so much, a variety of candies, and make the special frosting that would glue it, the white that would glue them together. And I would have everything ready, and then all they had to do was, if the older ones could get their own together, that was part of the challenge, because it took a lot of patience. But they would decorate those with their friends, and then they could nibble on those all through Advent. And then we would do like a scripture verse in the morning, or in the evening, something, or we talk about matters of Christ and Christ's coming. And of course, decorating the house as we went along through Advent was another preparation for the coming of Christ, of the celebration of Christmas. And trying to think of anything. We did Advent lighting of the wreath every week, and sometimes we would do daily, because kids love lighting candles. They love, lighting matches and seeing something burn. And but other traditions, certain things that you would bake during that time. And I think one year we did an emphasis of ding dong ditching. I had a little hand tinted painting cards. I would draw the images and come up with sayings and scriptures inside and greetings, and then get them printed, and then I would hand watercolor each one, tint in. And sometimes the children would help me tint in if they were easy ones. And I did a Christmas version, several Christmas cards, and some, Thanksgiving everyday type, and would sell those. And trying to make a little extra money to augment my low income. And it got to the point, of course, I couldn't sit to do that or stand to do it. But I would use some of that money and buy things if I would hear of a family or a woman who had just been divorced and knew that she wouldn't get herself anything special, but would always spend it on, the necessities for herself or for her children or paying the bills. I would get some lovely little gift like maybe some Esther Laudy lotion or some kind of special something that a woman wouldn't dare buy for herself. And we would ding dong ditch. Oh, my kids loved that. We would try to do that before Christmas as a lead up, something special. And then they would run up and leave it at the door, and we'd wrap it, and they'd ring the doorbell. And it wasn't always anything super expensive, but something that would be, it's what I mentioned to Father Vincent, like for this girl, even this teenage girl that he hit by accident. She had walked out in front of his car. And something frivolous, something that a girl would want, but that she would never get because, it didn't have to be frivolous, but something special that would be, not the necessity that she wouldn't dare ever think to have, but would love to have, that maybe the other girls have. So, because I think that's important to treat people with, especially in Advent, to think of that, of how the wise men brought this gold and incense and myrrh to the newborn king. Very extravagant gifts. And we ought to think of other people as special, as Christ is in them, Christ the King. And especially people who are poor, who, give them hand down this or that. Always liked giving something new, because they don't get that often. And not that they need, I wouldn't just go overboard, but I think it's nice to do that if we can, something special, not something old and used to remind them that they're poor, but a little something fresh and new. It smells new, looks new, and isn't. I remember this because my mother-in-law could be a little stinker at times, and my husband and I worked, and I was very frugal. We were very frugal, but God gave me this gift of sensing things, and I would sense good houses that we should get. And then I'd work hard and just decorating. I didn't get into renovating then, but, decorating, and then we would sell and so we made money that way, and moved up and made more money so that our mortgage would be less and less each time we would move. Flipping a house, I guess they call it. But we'd stay in the same area until then he started moving to other areas for his jobs. But I think that, and I would sew clothes for the children, but I also would get them nice things on sale, especially when they were going to school. Self-esteem is good for children. And I don't know if my mother-in-law resented or what, that we were doing well soon, fairly soon. And so she worked volunteered at a thrift store, which was lovely, but she gave them for Christmas, and they were old enough. They noticed, clothes from the thrift store that hadn't even been laundered. There were food globs on them, and they were very worn. And, I wasn't ever an extravagant person, but I guess I carry things off as if I am, I suppose. I liked gourmet cooking, and, it doesn't need to cost more than cooking a regular hamburger, but you can gussy things up. I'm creative, so I would do creative things. And even the things I would sew would be creative, or, nice styles and things are nicely sewn. Always try to do my best. And, but the children were sort of stunned, a little bit. And, I always remember that. Maybe she thought we needed to be humbled or something. I never took on airs or anything. But, and of course, when I was single, we had to save our pennies. The children didn't have much then, but I did my best, They had fewer, but nice. I did a lot more sewing even when they were in high school. They chose the fabric, they chose the patterns, and they were happy with what I sewed them. But anyway, just going into some of my own experiences and my own ways of thinking about to do the best with what we have. And my mother-in-law, they had plenty of money. It was she was making a point, I guess, and I did decide, to be at least around her, to be sure to not seem like I was very creative. Some people are bothered by creative type people. And but it was probably our that we had bought and sold, and I had fixed up, and had made the money. But it's okay to be prudent and shrewd, and we both were getting our advanced degrees and working hard. So that was, maybe she resented, I don't know, but it was different. It was different, to, especially with the children old enough to see, oh, there's food on this, and worn and needed mending and things, so. But our children had plenty of clothes. They didn't need any more anyway. So, and that's when I give things to thrift shop. I don't give cruddy things. If it's that cruddy, it's time to put it in the trash. But I wear things until they're pretty well shot. So I don't buy clothes. I haven't for years and years. Don't need them. So. Wear things till they're gone. And I definitely not at my age. I don't spend like that, so don't have it. So how I get off on these things, storytelling, and then I start seeing things in my mind and all these details and memories, and I just tell them. It's a bad habit. But that's Advent, and we did send thank you notes for the gifts for those clothing. Always had my children, and they would sign them if they couldn't write. They could write thank you, and I would write an added note. And it's a good message. Just maybe not the right timing and not to the right people. Maybe not to do that to children, your grandchildren, but because they weren't the ones that were shopping or anything. So, oh my. Anyway, let's come up with some other Advent. Well, my whole thing will go more into the spiritual, and I'll talk about it in the spiritual one. But I'm just off the top. I'm starting to notice the things that God has put behind me and wants me to put behind me, like that memory. of the mother-in-law even. Put it behind, and other than the message of don't take on heirs, or even if you're not, try to be for other people what they're comfortable with. Don't try to incite envy or resentment in anyone. And if you can help it. And then the other is to start recognizing that God is making all things new in this new liturgical year, Advent, and with the coming of Christ and the coming of the second coming, to think on that, our end. And with that, I'm noticing more how God is showing me new ways to be spiritually, and new ways of being better, and my bad habits to get rid of. And even in doing these videos, I'm trying to do a newer and better focus, more love. And while I loved my mother-in-law, it wasn't nice of me to bring up. She's deceased now, and she was very well off. But as you know, it ends up. But she worked hard as a school secretary. She was a superintendent's secretary. Her husband, an electrician. But they did different things than how they made their money, and stayed in a certain place and area. And I recognized in the 70s and 80s with the real estate market in Southern California that two people who were school teachers could make some money that way, build up equity. And I think that, yeah, it was the Christmas, that this one house we were in that was in a very lovely location, and we ended up selling that, but and made money on it to invest on, to get our mortgage down, so that we were going to have college. Well, ended up I helped pay for the college, and my kids had oodles of loans, but so still, that's different people do different things. It has nothing to do with Advent, does it? Except putting away those memories and going on into what's now and next. So maybe it was good that I did mention that I could learn my own lesson here, even in the video. God bless His real presence in us.